Well, let's continue with more Visual C Sharp and Chapter 1. I'm going to start up Visual Studio and create a basic application. File, New, Project. And again, I'm going to make a Visual C Sharp project. And it's going to be a console application. I don't want the default name. App with comments, and I want to make sure I know where it's being saved at. This one is going to be saved in the projects folder. Keep my solution name the same as the name of my project. Create a folder for this one. So all I need to do is click OK. It goes ahead and builds a starting location for us. And we don't really need to worry about collections right now, or link, or more than one thread. What we're going to do is and I could leave those there, doesn't really matter, but to slim the program down a little, I can get rid of those. I did use I did save the using statement for the system namespace, and then we have created a basic namespace, whatever name you gave it. By default, it adds one class, and that class has the default name of program. If I wanted to, I could highlight that, right click, and rename. And I could call it something else, and it would apply that throughout the program. So wherever there was a reference to the class program, I can change that name if I wanted to. Okay. What I can do is that I can add comments here, and two different ways that we can add comments, really three, but we'll look at the first one, which is /*, oops, /*, and then a closing asterisk slash. And any comments we want, this is a block comment, so we can add your name here, the class, and the assignment, okay. And we have our namespace. Inside of the namespace, we have our class. Inside of the class, we have our method, and this is the main method. This is the first place the compiler will come to when it wants to start running the program. So from here, what I can type is I can say system.console.writeLine, and make sure I put a semicolon on the end of that. What do I want to write to the console window? I just want to test to make sure everything's working okay, so I'll say hello world. In here, what I can do is to pause the output when the console screen displays on the window, displays on the screen. I can pause the output by saying and console read line. Now, I didn't put system in front of console because I really don't need to. Uh, if I look at this, I'm already using the system namespace, so really don't have to put it again here. Um, the author does one more thing, which is there's another using statement that she uses. Using, and it is static. Oops. And this is another thing that we can use for a shortcut, so that I really now you notice that the console is grayed out now, so I really don't even need those now, since I have a using statement up above. But normally I would leave the console statement in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this and see if it works. Okay, so debug, start debugging. And that seems to be working okay, so I'm at a good starting place. So I can add comments, and comments are ignored by the compiler. So these comments are just for your use or for someone who's looking at your code. And if you come back to your code 6 months later, comments can be incredibly helpful and save you a lot of time. So we use the block comments. You can also use the line comment, which is the double slash. And let's go ahead and add one of those in here. So once you type the double slash, anything else on that line will be ignored. Okay. So, example of comments. The next line writes the message. After this ending block, curly brace, you can put in 2 slashes and whatever description you want there. So, adding comments. System namespace. Like I say, once you add the using statement for system, you no longer need to put system in the statements. Once you use the using static system console, then you no longer need to add console to your statement. Our code compiles down to an intermediate language, and then that intermediate language can run directly on your computer system. This is just uses something called a just-in-time compiler. You can run things from the command line. If you haven't seen the command line before, I'm using Windows right now, so what I can do is that I can run CMD or command. It brings up my command window, and at one time before GUI applications, this is all that you had. This is the operating system would put a prompt out there, and this is what you had to run your programs with. We could compile and run from the command window, but we have a GUI and Visual Studio, and it is just so much easier to use Visual Studio. So I'm going to exit this. So we're not going to worry about the command line. We're just going to use our IDE or Visual Studio. Not going to worry about the command prompt of Visual Studio. You should take some time to look around Visual Studio and start getting used to using it. The different parts of Visual Studio, the Solution Explorer, Properties window, the Editor window, all of these things. If you get these windows out of whack and you're not sure how to get them back, it's really easy. All you need to do is go to Windows and reset Windows Layout, and it will snap them back in place for you. Let's look at one last thing. Let's say the right line command. What I'm going to do is copy this line 3 times, but instead of right line, what I will use is right. Okay. I'll call this first line. Second line. And third line. Now, one more thing I can do is that I'm going to concatenate this. Will be added. Okay, so here I have, these are both inside double quotes. This line and this line are both inside double quotes, but they are joined together with something that looks like a plus symbol. Well, it is a plus symbol, but it serves double duty as a plus symbol, and in this case as a concatenation operator. In other words, it joins these two lines together. And you notice that I don't have a space in front of that double quotes, and I don't have a space after that double quote, so these lines will be joined directly together. So let's go ahead and run this and see what these 3 lines output. Debug, start debugging. And it bills, and there it is. And it ran the program, but it placed everything on one line. It placed everything on one line. So instead of printing the first line and then doing carriage return line feed, and then the second line and carriage return line feed, what it did is it just placed those all on the same line. So that's what the write does. The write line says write this out and then go to the next line, whereas write just says write this and then pause at the very end, and then when this write comes along it says okay, continue on here. Okay, so that's the difference between write and write line. Write line will create a brand new carriage return line feed at the end of the line. Okay, that will do it. As say I've finished these, so I'm going to save this, and the name of this namespace was app with comments. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead and close out Visual Studio. And by the way, when you're saving these, make sure you always use Save All and never use Save As. Uh, Always use Save All. Okay. And I'm going to close this solution down. And I'm using Windows, so I'm going to use Explorer. And I have a folder there that it created, app with comments. That was the name of the program that I created. And if I drill down in there, I'll see that it's generated a bunch of files and codes that are available. Okay, so I just want the top one. What I'm going to do is right click, send to compressed zip folder, and make sure you can see your file extensions. So set up your environment to where you can see the dot, in this case zip file, and that's it. I'm going to rename this one, this zip file. And give it my name and okay, .zip. So that's what I'm going to upload. So now if I were turning this in, I would go to Canvas, open the course, click on modules, find the assignment I was working on, whichever one that was. Let me try a different one. This one may not work. And I'm going to click submit assignments. And in this case it says resubmit because in this one I've already submitted once. So if I'm resubmitting, I need to make sure that I'm submitting everything. So choose a file to upload, and in my projects folder I had zipped that file, so I click on that, click open. So I've gotten that changed. If I want to add another zip file, I can just click on this and go find the next zip file that I've got. And I've got comments, so there's usually questions to answer about the assignment. I'm going to copy and paste those into comments, and then I would go in and answer each one of those. And then when I'm done, I submit assignments. So I'm uploading the file and answering those questions in the comments. And that's it. I've got my submission turned in. Gives me the date and time. It gives me the file that I uploaded. And that will do it.